Hello, this is Sierra and welcome to another video. Today we are reading chapter 21 of Hermitcraft Freedom. Right now I'm recording during a heat wave, so I had to turn off my fan because it likes to mess with the recording. And you don't really want to hear echoey or reverberating stuff. So, yeah. But not important now. If you haven't read the previous chapters, you probably should, because there are spoilers and all that fun stuff. But if you don't care, that's fine. Of course, there will be a link to the next video when it is available in the description, if you are interested in checking out the next one. But that's up to you. But you should get started. Captions are available for the chapter as well, if you are interested. No! Kate coughed, stumbling up to her feet, using the wall for support, as she watched Impulse hovering over the limp, unmoving form of Beat-Ups on the floor. That's not Impulse. She swallowed back another cough, not wanting that thing, whatever it was, to turn its attention back on her. She could already see trickles of red sprinkling the hardwood floor. Get away from him! Isaac shouted, charging from the hallway, adjacent to the elevator, sword in hand. Clara and Matthias were right behind him. Where's Skids? Matthias said quickly, meeting the girl's eyes. His attention was redirected back to Isaac as the boy hurtled past him, thudding against the wall with a groan. He's in the kitchen, Kay replied, gasping, as the hovering look-alike hurtled toward the adults. Clara and Matthias dodged out of the way, just in time, lunging in unison toward the look-alike. Get the hermits to the sleepover room, Clara urged, not taking her eyes off the machine, her sword bouncing off it with a clang. Metal. The look-alike was made of something metallic. But why did it look so much like her friend? Julius is guarding both bedrooms. It's not going to be enough, Kate insisted. It's too... Matthias shouted in alarm as the machine grabbed him by the arm and hurling him over its shoulder. Matthias collided with the wall, a few feet next to her, collapsing to the floor, unconscious. Go! Clara commanded, her piercing eyes moving toward her, misread, as Kate gulped. She needed to get Beat-Ups out of here. Kate crossed the room, falling to the hermit's side. She reached out, checking his pulse, relieved to feel the steady heartbeat at her fingertips. Kate looked over her shoulder warily, watching the machine pressing forward, forcing Clara toward the wall, dodging its punches. How long could she keep that up before it would inevitably hit her? Yeah. I'm sure she knows what she's doing. She shook her head, carefully lifting the limp hermit into her arms. Beat-Up's face was already starting to bruise, his face having slammed hardest against the wall. Watch out! Haley's shout of alarm filled the room. Kate whipped her head back over her shoulder, watching the machine lunging forward. Clara gasped as it smashed her into the wall. Haley and Eliza charged in the room, swords in hand. No! Don't fight it! Kate shouted, running in front of the duo. The older teens stopped in their tracks. It only attacks if you attack it first. It's only after the hermits. Then how do we stop it from hurting them? Eliza frowned, furrowing her brow. I don't know, but we need to get Beat-Ups and Skids to the sleepover room. Julius is guarding it. We know, Haley said gently, her eyes looking beyond Kate. The 13-year-old girl looked over her shoulder again, watching the machine step away from Clara, badly beaten and bloody from the collision and the machine's further attacks. It turned its head toward them slowly, its empty eyes staring at them before Kate could hear a muffled shout from outside. Kate tensed as the machine turned its attention away from the girls before hurtling toward the window, its rocket boosters at full blast, lunging toward a figure ahead. Joel. He was carrying something in his arms. No, not something. Jem! Kate gasped, turning back to her friends. We have to do something. How? You saw how those things attacked Clara. What they did to Matthias? And Isaac and Skids and beat-ups, Kate pointed out, tightening her grip on the unconscious hermit she was carrying. There might be a way, Haley said thoughtfully, before turning toward the hallway. Really? Kate asked hopefully, following her out into the hall with Eliza at her heels. That thing, Haley replied. Its movements looked familiar. I met something like it several months back when I was checking on Sam and the others in Lovely World. We had a Christmas party. How many times have you been to Lovely World? Kate asked. Haley shrugged. A couple. Only when Liam needed to send a message that was too risky to put over the communicator. That makes sense. Kate nodded. The three of them arriving at the kitchen. In the kitchen. Whatever. Eliza slipped past Kate, going to the other side of the room. Skids was slumped on the floor, leaning limply against the wall. Blood trickled from his mouth and nose, but the wall behind him had cracked from the impact of the punch. Kate gulped, staring at the pale face of the hermit she'd been talking to minutes earlier. Volleyball was there. Haley continued, as Eliza carefully lifted Skids off the floor and into her arms. It was one of Viva's creations, programmed to look and act like Polly, lure Stampy away from the dogs, and protect its creators. Stampy found a loophole to make it good instead of evil. How did he do it? Kate pressed. I don't know. He never told me, Haley said. It wasn't important at the time. It's important now, Kate said matter-of-factly, leading the trio toward the sleepover room. We need to get in touch with Stampy. The defectors got a hold of some of Viva's blueprints blueprints of her inventions. Wow. You get the point. Eliza's eyes widened. How are we planning to reach him? How are you planning to reach him? Does Stacy or Lizzie have a way to reach Scott? Kate rose an eyebrow. Haley frowned. Maybe? We'd have to ask. Then let's do it and save our friends, Kate said confidently. Haley and Eliza smiled. Kate didn't have to guess what the girls were thinking. They were in it together. They'd find a way to stop this, no matter what it took. I'm just thinking, do I just do the next chapter because this was relatively short? I think that's okay. In this case, I say that's okay. Let's move on to chapter 22. Gem perspective. You could probably already tell from the title of this video, but I guess if you were just going through it automatically, maybe you wouldn't know, I guess. It doesn't matter. Let's enjoy the ride. There, that should be the last of it. Jem readjusted the armchair. The room was bathed in warm morning sunlight. It wasn't necessarily a large room, but it was perfect. As she looked back at the painting the girls had made for Scar, she smiled. The picture captured her friend so well, snuggling with Jelly, as he was doing now. Not sure how much I'm going to need that, Scar chuckled, as Jelly hopped down from his lap. Caleb will if he comes in with you, Pearl pointed out. I don't think he's going to leave you in a room by yourself for a while. That's true for all of us, though, Scar said simply, smoothing out the blanket that rested on his lap. The defectors could make their next move at any moment. We need to be ready. We are ready, Jem said cheerfully. There's nothing they could possibly do to catch us off guard. Of course, Scar mused. You're never surprised by anything. Jem shook her head. We just can't let our guard down. And not have any fun. Pearl raised an eyebrow. We can still have fun and still be careful, Jem pressed, giving her friend a smile. Pearl nudged her playfully. At least Jelly gets to enjoy her toys again. She's been getting restless, and I don't blame her, Scar beamed, his eyes not leaving the feline who was climbing up a cat tree. There's been nothing to do apart from practice, security, and more practice. What more can we do? Jim asked. We can't have a stroll out in the forest when we know the defectors would take any moment to take advantage of the situation. You're not scared, are you? Pearl smirked. I'm not. Jem crossed her arms. I'm just being reasonable. Mm-hmm. Pearl nodded slowly, her smile widening. It's been a weird few days, Jem admitted, turning to face the window. First stress gets into trouble, and then we get her somewhere safe. Then Scal needs help, and then we don't hear back from Impulse or Green for hours. Then Falls gets attacked at her own base, killing two of our own, and critically injuring Aaron. How can I not be a little on edge? Oh, get easier, you'll see, Pearl replied. The cause is good at fighting people. It was when Rose was in charge, Chip said calmly, glancing over at Pearl. In my mind, she still is. Really? So what if they take away her leadership role? She's still doing things, saving lives, and what are the defectors doing? You got a point there, Jem sighed. Those goons are so obsessed over one little lie that they miss the entire point of why the protectors do what they do, Pearl continued. They help people because they care. It's their job. Jem nodded. I hear you. I know Caleb, Josh, and Luke won't let anything happen to us up here, Scar replied. If there's trouble, we've got it. Jem smiled. At least you haven't changed. Scar laughed. You up for some more practice, or should we see how the others are doing? Jem paused, looking toward the window again. It was covered by a white curtain, but she could still see the cloudless sky above. It was bright blue, cheery. Maybe Clara would let us do some flight practice, Jem suggested, turning to face her friends, just as she heard a muffled yelp from the hallway, followed by a thud. Oh, yeah, cheeky foreshadowing. You already knew that it was going to happen, so it's not that big of a surprise. What was that? Scar frowned, turning the head toward the closed door. Jem crossed the room, putting her hand on the door. Jem looked over at Pearl. Her friend shrugged at the hermit as the hermit opened the door, gasping as something flew past the door, down the hall, before it was followed by another thud. What is going on? A voice groaned as she peeked her head out. 3 bodies were either lying on the hardwood floor or slumped against the wall. 2 of them were motionless. The 4th figure stood in the middle of the hall, looming over the 3rd boy. Green? Jem blinked. What was Green doing? Why was he attacking their friends? Green turned from the slumped figure to face her, his empty eyes staring back at her. His movements were slow, almost mechanical, as she furrowed her brow. What is he doing? Green took a heavy step forward, his hands tightening the fists. Green? Are you okay? Jem said, stepping back from the door. Did he do that? By himself? Pearl gasped. Why would he? You trust Caleb. Scar furrowed his brow, rolling just a little closer to where the girls were standing. Right, Jem whispered. Unease filled her as she remembered the night before. Green's arm had been cold and hard when she grabbed it, and its movements didn't look right. Sure, sometimes he didn't want to talk after going through an awful experience, and Jem couldn't blame him, but even the emotional silence was strange for him. I don't know what that thing is, Luke wheezed from behind Korean. Certainly not Korean. What? Jim asked as the Korean look-alike lunged toward them. Jim yelped, jumping out of the way as it barreled into the room. She turned around to face the machine as it scanned the room, scanning each of them before resting its eyes on her. Korean lurched forward before she had time to react, as she felt something cold and hard knock her backward. She screamed as she slammed against the wall. "Jim!" Pearl cried, running forward and grabbing the look-alike by the arm. "Let her go!" The thing ignored her as it loomed over Jem, now lying on the floor, leaning against the wall, gasping in pain. It flung Pearl aside, sending her flying backward as it lifted its fists above Jem's head, preparing to strike. Jem shielded herself at the machine as the machine came down, as she screamed in pain. The force of the strike stopped instantly when she heard a metallic clang. "I didn't do any damage?" Scar asked. Jem opened her eyes, trying to see through her tears. Scar was behind the green look-alike, holding an iron sword in hand, staring at the thing's back. Green turned around as the hermit looked up, realization dawning in his eyes. "Scar!" Jem cried out as the machine lunged for the hermit, in an instant, sending them both hurtling across the room. She heard her friends scream as they crashed through the wall and into the hallway. Pearl stumbled to her feet before coming to Jem's side. "Are you okay?" Pearl asked quickly. Jem readjusted her position, wincing as she reached for her sword arm. "Yeah, I'll be okay," she said through gritted teeth. Pearl nodded, running toward the look-alike, and where the look-alike... I'm missing a word here. Can you guess what word it is? Running toward where the look-alike had disappeared with Scar. She couldn't hear him as she slowly got to her feet. "Scar?" Jem. She wiped away tears with her uninjured hand. She needed to see clearly if she was going to be any good at helping her friends. But why did it hurt so much? Was that thing made out of metal? "Yes, Jem. Yes, it is." "Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" Pearl's shout rang through the hall, followed by a scream and another crash. Jem scrambled toward the open doorway, looking out as a gasp caught in her throat. Across the hall she could see Scar, his chair now sideways, pinning his limp body to the floor. The hermit wasn't moving. She spotted Pearl on the other side of the hall, crumpling to the floor as the machine hovered over her with rocket boosters. "Pearl!" Jem screamed, fear shooting through her as she picked up a fallen sword and charged across the hall, lunging after the machine, attempting to stab it in the shoulder. The sword flew out of her hand, and she fell onto the floor. She looked up to see the machine now turning its attention back on her. She gasped as it grabbed her by her overalls, lifting her off the floor. It hovered a few feet off the hardwood. It stared at her, as if assessing what it should do. Then it raised a fist and punched her. She hurtled across the hall, smashing through a window on the other side. The air screeched past her ears as she plummeted to the ground. A jolt of pain consumed her as she collided with the grassy earth. She blinked away, the dark spots floating in her eyes. Everything hurt so much. "Jem!" A voice called from behind her, as the hermit struggled to sit up, only to fall back down, groaning in pain. A shadow appeared beside her. A moment later, she blinked away, the tears welling up in her eyes. "Jem, what happened? Are you okay?" "Fine," Jem gasped. It hurt to breathe, much less do anything else. How hard had it punched her? "Ambush! Green!" "Green?" Joel frowned, looking up as Jem followed his gaze. She could hear the rocket boosters, even though it felt so far away. What in the world is that? The grand lookalike was hovering just outside the window, his empty eyes staring down at the two hermits. Jem gulped in a shaky breath as Joel slowly rose to his feet. Get back! Sean stepped into view, pulling Joel back. Another shadow appeared on our other side. Kane. Jem's eyes grew wide as the machine hurtled toward them, its eyes locked on its target. Run! Come on, Joel said quickly, turning back as he scooped Jem up into his arms. She yelped in pain as he began to run. Pearl, Scar, Jem whispered, hating how shaky her voice sounded as she bounced around in her friend's grasp. She looked back to where they'd been as a scream filled the air. Horror filled her as she saw the machines take a direct hit from a gas blaster before punching one of the protectors hard. The man hurtled across the field, smacking hard against the stone wall. No! Joel glanced over his shoulder and frowned. They'll be okay. We need to find a place to hide and find the others. Jem was too sore to argue with that just as a part of the wall beside them crumbled. Her eyes widened as she saw another figure, fists clenched, eyes cold and empty. Impulse. At least it looked like Impulse. Yeah, that would be terrifying. Joel yelped in surprise as the machine activated its rocket boosters, hurtling toward them. Not only that, but the green lookalike wasn't far behind. We can't outrun them. Jem coughed, tasting something tangy and metallic in her mouth. Blood. Well, do you have any better ideas? Joel snapped, dodging to the left as one of the machines flew past them, coming to a hovering halt in front of the duo. Joel swerved to the right, shouting as the machine swung its arm and socked him squarely in the shoulder. The duo hurtled to the ground as Jem rolled onto her back, looking up in time to see the two machines float to the ground before walking toward them. Joel, Jem warned, scrambling to sit up despite how her body was screaming in protest. I sure hope someone called for help, Joel grunted, stumbling to his feet as he extended his sword. He stepped forward, eyeing the two machines. Swords don't do anything to them, Jem pointed out. Does anything damage them? Joel eyed her warily. Jem shook her head, gripping her injured arm. Jem! Another voice shouted as the hermit turned her head. She could see Kate, Haley, and Eliza running out of the broken front door. The young 13-year-old's gray eyes were wide with horror. No, get out of here! Joel snapped, stepping in front of Jem. These things are too dangerous. I know how to stop them, Kate yelled. The machines were now only a few steps away, their cold, empty eyes locked on Joel. Well, then do it already, Joel demanded, just as one of the machines lunged for him. He yelped as the second one, the Impulse lookalike, tackled him instead. Well, he dodged, but apparently not. Okay, let me fix that real quick. Up, yelped, swerving out of the way as the second one, the Impulse lookalike, tackled him instead. There we go, that makes sense. The trio of girls caught up to them as Kate blocked the green lookalike from joining its friend, pinning down Joel. Wait! Just listen to for a second, please! The green lookalike stopped walking forward, staring at her as Kate turned to the other machine. Get off him, Impbot! This is not what the real Impulse would have wanted. What are you doing? Jem said breathlessly as Haley and Eliza came to her side. She found a way to get in touch with Snappy, Haley said calmly. Snappy? Why would she need to? You've met Pollybot, haven't you? Haley raised an eyebrow. Pollybot? Lollipop stopped by for a Christmas party with Santa, she said matter-of-factly. It was one of Eva's creations, created to act like Polly, separate Stampy from the dogs, and keep him from hurting its creators. Then how? Watch, Eliza insisted. Her eyes flashed as she gestured to the bots. Jem followed her gaze, realizing Kate was still talking. I'm guessing the defectors created you to pretend to be our friends, Jem and Kate said simply, standing straight and defiant. Jem couldn't see the girl's face, but the robot seemed to be listening. Maybe Gerald had the idea to use Viva's machines against Stampy with the missing blueprints, one of which were how they made you. You came here to blend in until you could get the hermits alone, right? The green lookalike nodded. Well, I'm guessing once you were programmed to attack them so that they wouldn't be able to stop the defectors from what they were doing. Is that right? This time, Bot nodded. But that's the thing. You're supposed to act like Green and Impulse. Truth is, they would never hurt their friends. Kate turned to Impulse. Do you know how heartbroken Impulse was when he lost his best friend, only to see Rhinestone bring him back to torture him? She turned to Green lookalike. And Greenbot. You know how much it hurt Green to watch as he was used as a battery for the machine that attacked him, his friends? Neither of them would do anything like this. Not a difference. Family. The robots stood in silence. Jem blinked. They weren't attacking. They weren't fighting for their lives. Was it really that simple? No, this is very different to what the Hermits are doing in other series, like the Life series and Hermitcraft and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, it's a little bit different. So, come at me. It's a story. There's something you can do about it, though, Kate continued, her tone lighter. There's nothing in your programming that stops you from attacking those who created you. Right now, the real Green and Impulse are in trouble, and your creators are hurting them. Do you think you two, acting as them, would want to see someone you care about get hurt? They're robots. How can they have hearts? Joel asked. He was standing just behind the girl, ready to stand in at her defense, if needed. They have impulses in Green's DNA, she said simply. The defectors scanned them and created their machines as decoys. What they didn't account for was that they didn't fix the one loophole that we can use to our advantage. Of course, Joel said quietly, as the two robots nodded, looking at each other before returning their gaze back to the girls and hermits. You know where they are, Kate replied, looking back at the machines. You know how to stop them. You can stop them. The boss nodded stiffly again, before looking up at the sky. Jem gasped as the rocket boosters activated, and they disappeared into the cloudless sky, heading north of the fortress. I can't believe that worked, Kate whispered. Joel put a hand on her shoulder. You did good, kid, Joel stated. Kate looked over her shoulder at him. She smiled weakly. We should get you both inside, tend to your injuries, Haley said softly, offering her hand to Jem. Jem blinked up at her. They won't come back? Probably not, Haley replied. Come on. Jem nodded, taking the girl's hand as Haley helped her up, keeping her steady. How did you get in touch with Stampy anyway? Kate smiled and shrugged. I just asked Lizzie to connect me with Scott, and it was easy enough. Scott? Why Scott? Jem frowned. Kate giggled. It's a long story. Well, we have plenty of time to catch him, I suppose, Joel replied, looking over his shoulder to the base. We need to find everybody and make sure they get the care they need. And we need to send a team to follow those robots, Kate replied. Oh, I don't think you need to do that, a familiar voice said from behind. Jem looked up, seeing several figures crouched on the wall. Her eyes widened as she recognized Scott And beside him was an orange ginger cat. You know who that is. Well, most people know who that is. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. If you like, next week I want to do chapter 23 and 24 together again as Gate. And yeah, not a lot of people are wanting to watch, but if it has a hermit or somebody people know from the Clockwork Chronicles universe, it gets a little bit more views. But yeah. Just see how this one goes, because of course people do prefer one chapter a week, but 21 was pretty short, so I thought, hey, I might as well put those two together in one chapter and see where it goes from there. Unless 23 is a longer one, which shouldn't be. Yeah, both of them. Chapter 24 is pretty short. Fairly short, but yeah, we're getting toward the end game now. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week, whenever that might be.